that sort of remains unresolved from your point of view?
Oh, look, no, I mean, I think actually broadly the principles are all there. You think about the last Pacific Island Forum meeting that we had. There were issues that were particularly contentious around climate change. Here you have the unity of voice. To be able to come out with such a strong communique, a strong statement from leaders, and now it being all around the implementation, how can we move together on mitigation and adaptation in our region and making sure that the world sees how important this issue is. If I may, you see that the forum has all agreed with the idea of getting that advisory opinion, supporting Vanuatu in that work. That, I think, is a real illustration of the strength of feeling in this forum.
Compared to 2019, how different was the forum, and how would you describe that difference?
Well, the fact that we are here concluding and discussing the outcomes, and it's still daylight, I think is a bit of a sign. It was a lengthy meeting last time. This time it was the opportunity really just to go over a 2050 strategy, a significant piece of work, and just highlight the areas that we really wanted to amplify, but strong agreement. Talk about the Suva agreement, strong agreement. Talk about how we can make sure we keep making progress on climate change, strong agreement. There is a lot of unity in that room and a real singular purpose.
Were there any areas that there were disagreements?
Oh, again, you know, of course there'll always be a range of views, but my overall characterisation of the forum is a strong sense of unity, is a strong sense of regionalism, that together we need to work on these issues, share our concerns with one voice and come up with our own solutions. If I could draw on one example, the theme all the way through has been the impact of energy prices on this region. 72%, according to the forum, 72% of electricity supply for us Pacific Island countries comes from fossil fuels. Now, that has two impacts. One, climate related. Two, enormous reliance and vulnerability to the changeable energy market. You know, this is where you'll see there's been a commitment from the forum to move towards trying to increase renewable. In fact, energy ministers agreed for Pacific Island countries, those small island states, an 100% renewable goal. Now, this is where we, as New Zealand, need to work alongside the region to reach that goal, reduce those energy costs for our neighbours, and reduce emissions.
You spoke about unity.
And then I'll come to you.
A lot more, it's got, the US, China, all of these bigger nations clamouring for it and its attention. Do you think that means now the Pacific's moving into this period of having much more power and is in a position to really take its pick from what it needs from bigger nations?
Well, actually, I think one of the things that the region was very clear on some time ago by adopting the language of the Blue Pacific was really a call for the rest of the world to stop seeing our region as a collection of small land masses, but rather a large expanse of Pacific Ocean that, of course, unites us, but also is incredibly important. The environmental health of our oceans, our reliance, of course, on the ocean as a food source, but that in itself makes us a really important region. And this is where I think the region recognised that actually we need the rest of the world to hear the impact that their actions in other parts of the world, particularly on the environment and climate change, what impact it has in ours. So if other parts of the world are starting to see our region as important, I'd say our region has always seen itself as important.
You spoke about...
How much influence has Indigenous knowledge and Mātauranga Māori had on the strategy?
Well, I think that you can see within a lot of the language from leaders a view that we need to anchor ourselves first and foremost in the region in which we live, the importance of culture, knowledge, and of course we would say tradition, language and so on, fostering that domestically in our own environments and then drawing collectively on the strength that gives us as a region. And having confidence in the way that we do that. So yes, I'd say from New Zealand's perspective, that is really important. Also, I'd add that Māori have a shared voyaging history with the Pacific. That is another reason why we see it as both who we are, but where we are as a country.
You spoke about unity. Is it your understanding that Kiribati remains withdrawn from the forum?
Yes.
And what was the thinking behind leaving the door open for them in the Suva agreement?
Yeah. So yes, of course, they have made their views known in writing. I'm very pleased to hear today that the chair of the forum, the Prime Minister of Fiji, has spoken with the leader of Kiribati, and so that is a demonstration, I think, of the fact that the lines of communication are still there. The Forum have said the server agreement has been signed up to. We're all in agreement that that's the way forward. Now the door is open. And of course, it would be our hope that Kiribati, when they choose to, will come back to the Forum.
With the server agreement and
Yeah.
the 2050 strategy, big ambitions, potentially big changes. How are you and the Forum members going to ensure that's actually implemented as it needs to be? What has
Good
to be
question.
done?
So now, of course, the Secretariat and the crop agencies have been tasked with implementation plans to support the 2050 strategy. So here, leaders have set out their ambition, their expectation. Crop agencies and the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, now it's their job to work through what that looks like in terms of our activity as a forum. We've taken away an undertaking from New Zealand's perspective. I personally commit New Zealand to making sure that, particularly for the funding we've said through climate finance for the region, that we'll have a focus on the dual job of using that funding to also make sure that we're implementing that strategy. And a good example is that goal of renewable energy. That serves two purposes. It lessens the cost burden on those in the region who at the moment, because of the increase in fossil fuels, are really feeling the pain, and that's for basic energy needs. By acting in a way that is focused on climate with our climate financing, we actually can reduce that cost burden for the region as well.
Ahead of this week, there was a lot of talk about the significance of this week, considering there hadn't been an in-person
Yeah.
meeting in about 3 years. Do you think this week as a whole has lived up to that significance?
Yeah, I do. And perhaps maybe if we could finish on this note. I do. You know, we've spent really quality time together. One of the things that I think the Forum has worked quite hard on is, yes, that there have been meetings, set pieces, but there's actually been time enough for us to have those really important conversations with one another. And it's often in those conversations that you are reminded we have common challenges, but we also have common values and common goals. And the chance to be able to talk about some of those issues face to face, no intermediary, make sure that people understand where we're each coming from, that's invaluable. And there's been a lot of that these past few days.
And just one quick question: the new dress. Obviously, you had a shirt a couple of years ago. Where do they go? What do you do with them?
Oh, good question. For the most part, they come home with me. There's a few this time, so I might just double check whether or not there's any of our team who would get a bit more wear out of them, whether or not we can make sure. For me, it's all about making sure they get used. But no, most come home with me.
Are you
Yep.
looking forward to heading home and having a bit of a rest?
Well, I've also got a busy week next week. Local government New Zealand forum. We've got youth parliament. So yeah, life goes on. But I've got a big gap between now and the next expectation for longer form travel. So the next big stints are September and October, November. So a bit of a gap in between. But this burst of activity has all been about reconnecting New Zealand, and the world is in a hurry to reconnect. NATO summit, of course, the PIF summit, a real eagerness for bilateral engagement. I think people have missed the ability to meet face to face. And I'd like to think that we've used that enthusiasm to New Zealand's benefit and achieved some really important things for us over the past few weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.